Hello, parents of dragons. This is Holly McShane, the Career College and Dual Enrollment Coordinator for Jefferson City Schools. And today I just want to share some updates with you regarding spring 2021 dual enrollment registration. Now that we have some additions to our counseling team and I've moved into this role to assist those counselors with dual enrollment registration, we have been able to streamline a process in which we're all hoping this will be less stressful for parents and less confusing for students. And I want to review all the information that we placed on this one site on the website that will help you as you sit down and do some advisement of your own with your student. So if you simply go to the readytograduate.com website, you'll come to the homepage, and across the top is a tab called Academic Planning. And as you select that, if you'll scroll down to the Dual Enrollment tab, you'll see some generic information about how dual enrollment is actually the opportunity for students to take college coursework during high school, and it counts simultaneously for high school credit, and it starts accruing credits on their college transcript as well. So we want to begin with, when does spring registration open up? And I know it's been confusing for some parents because if you're already searching the websites for our current college partners, you will see that those deadlines for registration enrollment are kind of all over the place. And please do not be alarmed if you feel like you've already missed the boat on some of these partners. I can assure you that you have not. The high school does set its own deadlines, and we are really have good relationships with working with our college partners to make sure that we are turning that paperwork around in time to create good enrollments for your student. So what we just require from the students and the parents is just to work with us within those deadlines and turn that paper around so we can make sure that we have done our piece. So the spring registration will open up the week we come back from fall break, which is October the 12th. And students will have from October the 12th to have advisement sessions with their particular counselor and return all of their paperwork no later than November 13th. And I want to clarify why it's so critical for us to establish that closing date of November 13th. The high school needs time to properly process that paperwork. We are reaching out with the college to make sure that that specific section that the student is requesting is available. We need to make sure that the college is working in a timely manner to enroll that student. And then, of course, we also need time in order to update the students' high school schedule so that the first day they come back from their winter break, they are ready to go and there's no disruption to their other high school courses that they might have. So even though the colleges might say they're willing to enroll students past that date, we have to have that window to kind of preserve the integrity of our program. So how it's going to work for spring registration, you'll see on this screen right here that students are assigned their counselor this year by the beginning of their last name. So Ms. Cathcart will work with students with A through GA. Ms. Morgan will work with students GE through PAR, and Ms. Carson will work with students with the last names PAT through Z. So Ms. Morgan and Ms. Carson have set up a calendar where you can actually click the link and the student or you can actually schedule an appointment on their calendar for this time frame. Ms. Cathcart, if you would like to schedule a session with her, if you will contact Ms. Coleman in Student Services, she can actually set that appointment up for you. So what will happen when students are in that advisement session with their counselor? First of all, they will go over their graduation plan. They will look at the student's current academic progress in terms of their GPA, any SAT, ACT, PSAT, or Accuplacer scores that are necessary for admissions placement. And then they will look and see which courses, based on when the college partners offer those courses, are the best fit to go into their high school block schedule. And then once they have that advisement piece complete, the school counselor will give the student two pieces of documents rather, that they will bring home to you. One is called an advisement form, and the other is actually a contract. And you can see these forms right here. And I will go ahead and say up front, it's not necessary for parents to download and print and pre-fill these out, because that kind of defeats the purpose of the actual advisement session with the school counselor. I just place these on the website so you can kind of be familiar with the expectations that the college and the high school will have for the student through this process. But if I click on the advisement form, You can see that it just has at the top who they're advising with and the date that they're meeting. And so it also just shares that after the student applies to the college of their choice, they will have to complete a funding application, which we will go into in just a little bit. But the student will just kind of fill out some demographic information. And then down here, this is where the advisement piece is very critical. The counselor and the student will work together to determine which courses will fit into their high school schedule. And the counselor will fill in all of the information about the college course title, which block it will go into, whether it's an online or an on-campus course. And we will actually designate for the college purpose which section and which days of the week we want that student enrolled, so it makes sure that it's a good fit with our school schedule and the student's goals as well. So then on the back side, of course, you'll see the student and parent information and signatures are required. Once this form is returned along with the contract, which we'll go over in a second, the high school counselor will sign off on that, and then that information will come to me, and I will work with the counselors to proceed with the processing of that request. We will look at this little statement down here if there are any concerns about the student's work habits or social maturity or ability to be organized. If we have concerns that this level of rigor might not be in the best interest of the student, we want to kind of note that here so the parent and the counselor can have some great dialogue with either maybe postponing that until the student is actually ready or determining what supports are going to be necessary to ensure that student can be successful. The second form is a contract. Because dual enrollment expectations and high school expectations do change, we want to make sure that there's no hidden surprises with what it will be like in terms of the student responsibility. Because first and foremost, the colleges are assuming that if they meet the criteria for admissions, they are college ready, meaning they have the social maturity, the work habits, the organization, and the ability to communicate with that professor and dual enrollment coordinator if they have concerns in the middle of that course. So what we're going to ask the student, along with the counselor advisor and the parent to review, is all of these little statements here. For example, we understand what the process is for advisement. We understand what those deadlines are and the importance of those deadlines, and that we really can't work around them as long as we know the students had enough opportunity to return that paperwork in a timely manner. We know that students are required to take 4 courses or credits each semester, and it doesn't matter what format, which is so great in terms of flexibility. They can be on the college campus. They could be on Jefferson's campus if the partner offers them on our campus. They can be online, or they can be a combination of any of those options. But if a student does drop a class, we will have to put another high school course in its place because our state requirements are they must have a full schedule, whether they need those credits to graduate or not. So it is the student's responsibility to bring the dual enrollment coordinator, which is me, a copy of their college schedule once they meet with their college advisor, because I can't really take classes and move classes around in their high school schedule until we have confirmed enrollment. And that prevents the student from being locked out of classes at Jefferson as well. So the dual enrollment funding application, which can be found on the georgiafutures.org, if a student is currently already taking dual enrollment courses, they do not have to complete this application each semester. As the dual enrollment coordinator and the counselors, we actually have to do our part to update the scheduling of classes, but the student and parent obligation is only needing to be met one time per school year. It is important that students understand they're responsible for completing all of their high school graduation requirements. So if a student, say for example, is in their second semester of their senior year and they fail a course that was required for graduation, that can be a huge issue, obviously. If they drop a course after the college has assigned the drop and add date, they may not get credit for that course. And of course, that will automatically enter them into an online course that the administration will have the judgment enrolling them in based on seat space and course offerings during that semester. One item I want to share, which we'll go over again later, is if a student has a 504 plan or IEP documentation, we do honor that with our college partners, which is great. But because that college looks at that high school student as a college student, they don't allow the school to submit the necessary documentation to ensure those accommodations are met. So, how the school can help the student is we can supply copies or PDF documents of the IEP or the 504 and other documentation that we have. We can send those to the student. The student will then have to reach out to the Office of Disabilities within each college partner, and they will submit through their student portal the necessary documentation within the deadlines in order to make sure those accommodations are met. It is important to note that if a student is taking a course through dual enrollment, that the state still requires them to have an EOC milestone assessment. They will have to follow through with taking that test. And the two classes that will most likely impact high school students would be American Lit and Biology, if they take those courses for initial credit. Withdrawing from a dual enrollment course is a big deal. So if a student receives an F, if they withdrew after the deadline for add and drop with no penalty, this will mean that they are not eligible for future dual enrollment courses. They will lose funding from the state. It's important that students understand that if they also receive that F, that goes on their college transcript, and that is a permanent part of their post-secondary record. It's real important that students communicate with me, their counselor, their instructor, their dual enrollment coordinator at the college if they feel that they are not making adequate progress in the class. This allows us time to potentially withdraw them without a penalty, or we can provide support systems for them in order to help them engage and be more successful. Please note that dual enrollment colleges do not follow the Jefferson school calendar. Students are expected to honor the school calendar set by the college. So, for example, if we have a fall break or a spring break that doesn't align with the college's spring break, that student still must report to that class during their high school break. Parents, this is probably the most difficult piece of helping your student with dual enrollment, and I experienced it when my own children did dual enrollment during their high school experience. Colleges do not communicate with the parent. They only communicate with the student directly. The high school at times can communicate with a dual enrollment coordinator representative at the college, but even we are not able to talk with that instructor directly. So it's imperative that students advocate if they are having any issues or questions about their class. It's important to note, too, that not all dual enrollment credits transfer to other colleges, especially in out-of-state situations. So the student would need to make sure they're contacting admissions offices at out-of-state colleges where they want to apply to see how flexible that college is on transferring in those credits. Students are obligated to comply with all the rules from post-secondary institutions, such as wearing masks during COVID-19 precautions. They have to maintain communication with the dual enrollment coordinator, which is me, while participating in this program. And for seniors, because we want to make sure there's no hiccups with graduation, we do ask that we have administrator approval for any graduation requirements taken in the last semester of their senior year. Students, it is their responsibility to frequently check their Google Class Drive. And most of the senior class is pretty good about this, but if you can help reinforce that, I would really appreciate it. They also need to be checking their student email for updates and announcements. So, for example, if we have a student taking a first block dual enrollment class, they are more likely to miss morning announcements, which reminds seniors about cap and gown, important events and deadlines. So all of this information will be posted in that Google Class Drive and in their student email. So they can always make sure they have a backup plan if they're not on campus during those important announcements. And again, at the end of this contract, the student and the parent will sign that, and they will actually return that along with their advisement form to Student Services, who will then send that my way. So now that that part is out of the way, let's go into the fun part, which is determining which college partner is a good fit for your student. So right now we have partners with Athens Tech, Lanier Tech, and we can do core courses and CTAE courses with these college partners. And then we have some private colleges such as Toccoa Falls College, Truett McConnell College, and we also down here have Young Harris College. And then we have a couple of public university system schools, which is the University of North Georgia and the University of Georgia. So what I want to share off the bat before we go through these one by one is that ninth graders, unfortunately, are not able to take any classes that are state funded. And that was a new change last spring. And so students will probably have to wait until they are in 10th grade in order to be able to do this. Now, students in 10th grade can only take CTAE courses at the technical colleges, unless they have already been able to score a 1200 on the SAT or a 26 on the ACT. And that's pretty tough considering students in 10th grade may not have had the curriculum exposure to some of those content areas which would enable them to score that high. But every now and then we have a certain percentage of students who are able to do that. So if they do meet those requirements, they would just need to work with their school counselor in order to determine which classes would be the best fit for them. So Athens Tech and Lanier Tech, Toccoa Falls College, and Truett McConnell will accept 10th graders for core courses if they meet that 1200 SAT or 26 ACT minimum. So for students that have not met that, then in 10th grade, you can still take those career technical courses at Lanier and Athens. And so for the other students, you must be a junior or a senior making adequate progress, and then we'll go through the specific requirements for each of our partners. So beginning with Athens Tech, we can just kind of click here on this link, and it will bring up the dual enrollment page, which just kind of walks the parent and the student exactly through what their specific requirements are. And so what we would have to make sure we're mindful of, and let me just pull up this file. Anytime you see a college's profile, this is a quick little cheat sheet on exactly what the college is wanting from their students to be admitted. So in this case, Athens wants a high school junior or senior to have a 2.6 core high school academic GPA. And so generally we go by the HOPE eligibility report. So if a student has a 2.6 or higher, we can just submit that and no additional testing is required. If they are below that 2.6 core high school GPA, we will need that student to meet eligibility requirements through testing. That can be through SAT, ACT, or AccuPlacer testing. Now, the AccuPlacer testing can be scheduled through Athens Tech once the student has applied for dual enrollment. They will call the testing center, which is right, this information is right here. And then they will schedule a time to go to the college campus, take the AccuPlacer, which there should be no charge. And that same day, they will know if they met the minimum requirements for placement and admissions into the program. So the rest of this profile will just share that the students can take online or on-campus classes. And here we have the semester dates for spring. And over here are, if they are a new applicant just beginning the process, this will kind of walk them through that entire step. So for example, after the advisement, they will submit their application through this link right here. They will have to complete a waiver of confidentiality form and a recommendation permission form with their advisor. And these documents are actually back on the website as well. Sending an official high school transcript is necessary for all of our college partners. I will walk students through that step in just a quick sec. And then after they receive their acceptance from Athens Tech, there will be a great deal of instructions on how to set up their account, their email, and then how to go to the next phase, which is meeting with their Athens advisor and completing the registration process. So again, we have the waiver of confidentiality form and the recommendation form that they would have to download and complete and send to Athens Tech. And then right here is actually the admissions test score requirements if students do not meet that 2.6 core GPA to be admitted automatically into Athens Tech. So hopefully that information is just right at your fingertips. Now, the fun part after they've met all of that criteria is you can actually go to the link to the course directory. And I don't believe they have the spring directory up yet, but you can see, for example, fall. This allows students to filter courses that they would want to take, and it will tell them the dates and the times that those courses were available. So students can kind of get a head start on seeing whether the classes they want to take might be flexible and fit into their block schedule. So moving on to Lanier Tech, they have a very similar process, require a little bit less paperwork, but here is the dual enrollment information sheet. Here's the link for them to apply now online. If we go back here, here is the Linear Tech profile, which shares what their requirements are. It's very similar to Athens Tech. And if we go back here, here is the link to their course directory. So let's jump down to Toccoa Falls College. If we look at Toccoa Falls College's profile, this is a private college, and they will accept 10th graders, but they do have to meet that 1200 SAT, 26 ACT. But if they are a high school junior or senior, they need to have a 3.0 high school academic GPA. So if they have that HOPE calculation report, that's all we need. No further testing is required. So their application procedures are quite simple. They're going to go online and put in their demographic application. They're going to send the high school transcript through the Georgia Futures. Then they will do their dual enrollment funding. They're going to return all of their paperwork to Student Services, and then they will wait for the confirmation email on how to proceed with registration through Toccoa. Now, Toccoa and Young Harris offer a unique schedule format. They have 16-week online courses, and they also have Session A and Session B. So these are sort of like 8-week mini sessions where a whole semester is kind of crammed into a very fast-paced, intense online format. But the benefit of that is it allows students to actually schedule 2 one-credit college classes within one high school block if they choose to do it that way. Because as soon as one 8-week session ends, the new class will begin. So they're not doing any more than 4 classes at any one time in their high school schedule. So that's kind of a little flexible option as well. So let's jump on over here to Truett McConnell. Truett McConnell has 16-week online courses for students, and they have to be a high school junior or senior unless they meet that 10th grade criteria. They need a 3.0 academic GPA, and then they will also go over here, apply online. There's also a paper copy of some additional information that they will have to submit through an email to Truett McConnell. And again, they'll go through and do their transcript, dual enrollment, funding application, and then follow the email directions once they are accepted. And here again, for your convenience, is the admissions application, and these are a copy of the spring tentative online course offerings. And if there are any adjustments to that, we will certainly post that for the students. University of Georgia is a little bit different. Unfortunately, the time frame to apply for spring 2021 has passed. However, students that are interested in fall of 2021, this would apply to our current junior class. In March, the window will open. It will close May 15th. The supporting documentation for UGA must be received by the university no later than May 15th. Students will actually use the freshman application, which is a little bit intensive for most students because the criteria to be accepted into the dual enrollment program is quite rigorous. So if we jump over here to the link, we can see that UGA requires a 3.9 high school GPA. This is in their core academics, not their cumulative. They also require a 1450 SAT or a 31 ACT composite score. The reason for this rigor is once a student is accepted into a dual enrollment program, technically they don't have to reapply for admission to that college after graduation. They're already in. So they want students who are in dual enrollment to basically meet or exceed the high school or the freshman applicant criteria in case they want to stay with that university after they graduate for high school. So let's go down next to the University of North Georgia. Here is their profile. Again, they must be a high school junior or senior. They do not accept 10th graders at this time. They must have a 3.25 high school academic GPA calculated by UNG. They also must have some test scores to determine admission. They will use a PSAT or an SAT or an AccuPlacer to determine placement. And here is some additional information for a student to take the AccuPlacer through UNG if they're not able to offer a PSAT or an SAT score. The application procedures are to go through their Georgia Futures student profile account, where they will go to college planning, and then they'll click the college applications tab, and there they will use the filter to find UNG and follow the screen directions to apply right online. And then once they receive their acceptance into UNG, they will follow the instructions in their email to begin the actual registration process. I want to just say right here that for all of these colleges, as soon as that student receives that email, they need to follow through within 24 hours, if possible, to contact the school to make sure that they have an appointment scheduled for their registration. Because, for example, if they drag that out into December, the greater the chances of them not getting a timely appointment, which could disrupt their spring high school schedule. And worst case scenario is they will be locked out of the classes or the section of the class that they really need that will fit into their high school schedule. So I encourage students to please check their email like every other day to see if they've received notification from the college in terms of acceptance. So University of Georgia, North Georgia, we also have a dual enrollment FAQ sheet, and we also have a student checklist on what they can expect after they have submitted their application. And again, over here, we have a link to the course directory. And so you can see that they have their spring of 2021 filter all ready to go. And we would just simply go through here. Let's say, for example, if we picked an English class, and let's say we want the popular 1101, which can be substituted quite easily for senior English. And we usually use either the Oconee campus or the Gainesville campus, just from proximity to the school. And once we search those, we can see here that they have all of the sections. So what the students will do is look and see the days. In this case, it's offered Mondays and Wednesdays from 4 to 5:15. It's at the Gainesville campus. And we can see that there's plenty of seat space, at least at this point in time. So the students can use this filter to kind of build their own schedule. So when they go through that advisement session, they can actually offer some suggestions to help with that advisement process on when they want that class. And the last one we have is Young Harris College. And Young Harris has been wonderful with us in terms of bringing courses out to our STEAM Center, which makes availability for our high school juniors and seniors really nice. In the spring, we will be offering English 1102, which is generally a universal class that's required for all bachelor degree undergraduate requirements. And we are also going to bring out psychology, which again is a great and flexible elective that can be used to satisfy most undergraduate core requirements. So Young Harris College will require at least a 3.0 academic GPA. If they do not have if it's a little bit lower than 3.0, they must have at least a 1050 on the SAT or a 21 on the ACT if it's below the 3.2. So here are some Session A and Session B online dates, very similar to what Toccoa Falls offers. And again, here are the selections for the on-campus courses that will be brought to the campus in the spring. The application process is quite simple. They will go here to this link and apply online. We send their transcripts through Georgia Futures, finish the enrollment funding application, and wait for the information to roll in through their email. So I know this was very lengthy. I appreciate you hanging in there with me while I went through all of those admissions requirements. And now what I want to share with you is the funding app that we have mentioned so much today. So we're going to go to georgiafutures.org. And again, we are expecting that all of our students will have already set up their student account by this time. It is so important that their social security number is accurate in Infinite Campus as well as in their student profile within Georgia Futures. The reason is that the Georgia Finance Commission cannot validate the student's enrollment through Jefferson High School if the Social Security information does not match. Therefore, they cannot fund the class if there is an error. So please have the students check both Infinite Campus and Georgia Futures for accuracy before they begin. So once they are logged in, all they really have to do is go over here to the Hope and State Aid application. And then they will jump down here to the state aid application. And there is the dual enrollment funding application that is online. And the student will click apply now. It takes literally about 2 minutes on the student's behalf. And what they will do, if this is the first time they've done this, is they will actually input in the parental email, and you will receive a push notification in that email for you to complete your portion of this funding application. If the student doesn't correctly do their piece and you don't complete your piece, then the application for dual enrollment has stalled. We cannot approve the classes. We cannot turn the paperwork around. Therefore, your student may not get enrolled in time within those deadlines. So it's real imperative that the students are on top of this and that we have completed that application from our end as well. So that is really all there is to the funding application. And again, recall if your student is already in a dual enrollment class fall of 2020, you do not have to do this again. This application is good for an entire year. This is just for new applicants for spring of 2021. So, if a student is even currently in dual enrollment and perhaps they want to apply to a different school this semester, they're applying all over from scratch, they're going to want to send their transcripts by clicking on College Planning and scrolling down to the High School Transcript tab. And again, they will just complete this filter on confirming their social security number, selecting the college that they want their high school transcript sent to, and it is done. It is such a simple process. They don't have to turn a hard copy around, and it is just done. Now, some of those colleges we mentioned want the students to apply through their Georgia Futures account. We know that University of North Georgia was one. So what the student will actually do is go back to college planning, and under college applications, they can actually find, and it takes a minute, and we have to confirm that information is correct. They'll come to this filter. So for example, if they're applying to University of North Georgia, they can just use the quick filter and then they'll click apply, follow the online screen instructions, and it is that simple. So I know there's a lot of moving parts to this and it can completely seem overwhelming. And again, I appreciate you hanging in with all of this information I've shared today. The process is really simple. What will help that process stay simple is if the student starts with their school counselor by scheduling an advisement session, returning all of the paperwork, following the step-by-step procedures that we guide the students through during that advisement process, and then following through with sending transcripts, completing that dual enrollment funding application, and then waiting for further instructions in their email to correspond with the registration completion phase. And then, most importantly, what we really need is for them to send me a copy of that schedule. And they can do that through a variety of ways. They can print off a hard copy and drop it off to my office or to student services. They can just simply screenshot it on their phone and email it to me at hmcshane@jeffcityschools.org. Sometimes the colleges will include me on those confirmations of enrollment, and sometimes they don't. It just depends. But it really is the student's responsibility to schedule that with me. One important note to wrap up all of this is once a student has begun the next semester and is enrolled in that class, books should be free. So if a student is receiving conflicting information about payment for a book, please have them come and see me. Please have them really make sure they're checking instructions in their email, because there are different set of instructions for dual enrollment students versus students who are there as a post-high school graduate. And I know that can be a little bit confusing for some students. Again, students who may begin a class and realize that's not a good placement for them and need to withdraw from the class during add and drop need to come and see me immediately. They cannot request to drop the class without first consulting. It's a two-piece process. They will come and see their dual enrollment coordinator, which is me. I will approve that request. Then they will also email the college to verify that my request is accurate. And then at that point, we will work to resolve the hole left in their schedule and deciding what class will be put into that replacement block. So again, I know this is a lot of information. Thank you so much. We've received such great feedback and we can tell that the interest for dual enrollment is absolutely growing. One last thing I wanted to share with you is this approved course directory. This link goes to the Georgia Finance Commission. And for parents, if you want to make sure that that your student is selecting courses that are fully funded by the state, this quick filter, you can just simply go to one of our partners, for example, University of North Georgia, and let's say we're going to select the English Language Arts core class. We can simply search that, and here we have English 1101. We know that it's funded because it's listed on this screen, and we are good to go with that. So we can kind of compare what the um, college's course directory offering is compared with the state funded directory and make sure that these courses are funded and we're not going to get any surprise bills. But you also have the dual enrollment coordinator and the school counselor's pair of eyes on that as well to hopefully let the student know if they're selecting a class that is not funded. Thank you so much for paying attention. Please let us know if you have further questions. We really recommend that your students sit down with you and watch this video if at all possible. Therefore, they're going into this session well informed, most of their basic questions already met, and they can kind of get down to the nuts and bolts of really selecting the partner and selecting the class that they're interested in for spring. Appreciate you. Have a great night.